This clip has gone totally under the radar. I haven't seen anybody talking about it, but I think it is the most important clip in the entire couple hours.
What's interesting about all of it, if you follow the details of it up until Kirk's death, TPUSA actually moved a lot more towards the Groyper-Fuentes position than they moved towards the kind of pro-Israel, this type of position, meaning a lot of the ideology that I think Kirk was changing on came from these various outside influences. And so if that's the case, why wouldn't you just curtail those outside influences and then you can keep Kirk as the mouthpiece, right?
What Andrew's arguing here is that, sure, they were starting to shift in terms of like guest panelists at these events to be more Israel critical or at least skeptical, having Dave Smith and Tucker and maybe having Candace back, right? And they had shifted, in his words, towards the Groyper side of the argument. But his argument here is that, well, then why not just curtail their influence? Why not just basically detach Charlie Kirk from those figures, those people, and then you could still keep him as the front man for the organization, as the pro-Israel shill? Andrew, for the love of God, that's what was happening. That's exactly what they were attempting to do. That's why Shillman and others were withdrawing millions of dollars. They were trying to curtail their influence. They were trying to get Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith away from Charlie Kirk to keep him as the mouthpiece. And Charlie refused, and you know he refused. And then he was killed just a month later. I mean, it just can't be more obvious, can it? That's the whole reason that we believe that that is a viable motive to consider. Because it is. Because it's the number one motive that you ought to be looking at when it comes to someone like Charlie Kirk having their life taken. Because all of these dynamics are true, valid, proven, beyond refute. And no, it doesn't prove definitively that Israel called the shots and that's the reason that Charlie Kirk's life was. It doesn't prove that. But you have to be, if you're being honest at all, you have to at least admit that that is the number one reason that someone with the power to take his life and the ability to get away with it and to set up a frame job of a patsy like Tyler Robinson, theoretically, that's the reason that they would do that. And Andrew Wilson knows it, which is exactly why he's saying, why didn't they just try and get these bad influences away from Charlie Kirk? Because he's admitting to you that, yes, it did bother them. And yes, justifiably they were bothered because they're donating to TPUSA and to Charlie Kirk to push a uniformly positive Israel messaging. And he refused.
Great podcast. Clint is tight.